Fragments of Silicon, sometimes also at this time.
All right, welcome to the first Fragments of Silicon Daylight interview of the new season. Joining us today is a friend from a long time ago, Ross from Ghostlight.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you. It's been a fair few years since we had you on the broadcast.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I think it's probably Mary Skeleton Nightmares, which is 2018.
Sounds about right. I think the last thing we covered on the program was the Switch version of Oh My God, Zombies.
Oh yeah. That was quite a while ago as well, I think, but I can't remember the exact dates.
Yeah. And I suppose the first question that comes up is, where have you and where's Ghostlight been in the interceding time?
We've really, for the last few years, and it probably started probably a bit before Zombies, but I can't remember exactly when. We've been working on ports for other publishers, particularly of Japanese games. We've done quite a few ports to Steam and to Switch for Western publishers of Japanese games. Quite a few Osme games and several JRPGs.
Right. Yeah, I know you did some work for Idea Factory.
We've done quite a bit with Idea Factory. We've also done some work with Axis. I think actually one of the first games we did for someone else was Tokyo Xanadu on Steam.
I think I remember that. And to reverse things, what made you want to, I suppose, for lack of a better term, get back into publishing with Mary Skelter 2 here?
It's something we've been wanting to do for a while, but it's kind of, we finally had a gap in our schedule where we could fit it in. It's a game we've had on our radar for quite a long time and have been wanting to work on it, but it was a case of just there not physically being enough time to work on it, and the games we were doing for other publishers had to take priority.
Right. And so, how has it been getting back into the publishing game?
I mean, it's a lot of fun
after so long.
Yeah, it's been really good actually, because I mean, I like working on these games anyway. I've always been massively into JRPGs and visual novels and stuff, so working on them is cool. But it's nice to sort of be more involved, telling, from my case, sort of telling people about them and interacting with the fans of the game and hearing from people who've been enjoying them, and also hearing from the person who's had problems and trying to help them. So being involved with the fan side of things again is a lot of fun.
Any sort of ring rust in getting back into the swing of things?
Yes. I do remember on sort of when we were finally announcing the game and ready to announce it, because we've been working on it for quite a while. Like, I think I first started teasing it come at it towards the end of 2020, and we couldn't announce it for ages. But when it was time to finally announce it, I was sitting there like, okay, I know I send emails and I know I put the blog up. What else did I used to do when we were announcing games? I know there's something I'm missing, but what is it? But I did sort of...
What does this button do?
Yes! There's a big red launch button on my desk. What happens when I press it?
Turns out it brings you lunch.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Millasoon in the chat says it was such a pleasure to interact with Ross about MS2, Mary Skelter 2.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. And I should mention, as part of that process, that includes interviews, because I'd imagine this is the first interview done in a few years.
Yes, it's been quite a while. I think the last one was probably the one I did with you. The last one I did with you guys, actually. So it's been a while.
Well, that's a nice bookend, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to feel about that. But anyway, now with the pleasantries out of the way, we should probably get to the game itself at some point. And that is Mary Skelter 2. Yeah. So I suppose the first thing I want to start with this game is the chronology, because Mary Skelter 2 has a very funky placement in the series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a bit nervous about explaining it in too much detail, because you do wander into the spoiler territory by exploring the timeline. But it seems to start in a very similar place to Mary Skelter 1, and things are just sort of subtly wrong. Like people are doing things that you don't remember, and in positions, and there's someone new then. Sort of working out why this is happening is quite interesting, I think.
I think the best way I can put it without getting into actual spoiler territory is a lot like Resident Evil 3. And to explain a bit further, the way that it works is it takes place around the first game. Some parts take place before, some play during and after, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. And it's also like an alternate retelling of the events, because, the main characters here are not the main characters you played in the first game.
Yeah. That seems fair.
Yeah. Like I said, when you look into it, it gets a bit confusing.
Yeah, it is, particularly at first, when you first get into it. Because you're seeing familiar faces, but they're different. And trying to work out what's happened is, I think it's I found it kind of interesting getting into it, because I had a vague idea of what was going on, but it was new to me. I hadn't really seen, before I played it, I hadn't really seen too much of how it fits around. So I myself really quite enjoyed sort of finally piecing together how they fit.
If you ever and if you have problems with that, just look up the wiki. I'm not even joking about that.
It's unbelievably helpful.
Yes.
Yes, I used that quite a bit during testing.
I don't doubt it. And there's a lot to cover here, but it's also trying not to get into too in depth into the spoiler territory. But I suppose what we can say about the change in, not necessarily plot, but change in direction, is the characters you're following, because you're following a new group, but one of the old characters also shows up in a different format, let's say. I know I'm making it sound more complicated than it is.
Yeah.
But it's because in the first game you're following, if I'm remembering correctly, Alice and Jack.
Yeah, those are sort of the two sort of viewpoint characters.
Yeah.
And
I guess this would be technically a spoiler, but this is really early game stuff. But Jack will accompany you, but he is, as a nightmare form.
Yeah, you get him as a nightmare, and in this one, at the start you get a character you haven't met before, Otsu, and Little Mermaid, who is mentioned in the build-up to Mary Skelter 1, but for various reasons you never actually see her in, or maybe in flashbacks form you see in Mary Skelter 1. I can't quite remember.
Right, and this time, Little Mermaid is one of the main characters. She's what you would call the deuterologist.
Yeah.
Because the main protagonist is a completely new character called Otsu.
Yeah.
Right, and their whole deal is, well, one of the central mysteries behind this particular game. Let's say, the so-called prince.
Yeah.
Of I want to say blood maidens.
Yeah, they're blood maidens.
Yeah, and that gets into my next question, and is what is new in Mary Skelter 2? What is been added gameplay wise?
I mean, for a start, there's obviously been quite a few changes to the UI, and things are a bit more efficient and just slightly more user friendly. One of the things I've really found very useful is that bringing up a camp to save no longer takes up MP, which was really useful because in the first one, quite often I'd be out of MP and I need to get out of the dungeon or I need to save, but I don't really want to use a potion to get some more MP to do that. So that was quite nice. In terms of not so much user friendliness, the dungeons are generally considerably smaller, which I found made them much more interesting. They're more focused, whereas in the original they were sort of a bit more sprawling, which gave you more room to explore, but I think they're more interesting now. The side quests work considerably better as well, I think. And I preferred the gift giving system for giving gifts to the girls largely because I don't know, I think it worked better just having sort of separate gifts for each character rather than a whole list which you sort of went through to see what everyone preferred. And I mean, those are the main things. I think also, in addition, the combat and the game itself are a bit better balanced in Mary Skelter 2, but they are fairly similar.
Yeah. I think in our review of Mary Skelter 2, we mentioned that the game is pretty similar to the first one, just with some additions. But if you played the first one, you're probably going to enjoy the second one.
Yeah, it's a refinement of the first. I think it takes a lot of what was good and removes some or improves some things that didn't work quite as well.
Yeah. Though it's also worth mentioning that the original Mary Skelter game has been included in this release. That's kind of standard across the release. Mary Skelter Nightmares.
Yeah, it's actually a slightly altered version of Mary Skelter Nightmares. There's a change to the ending that ties in and explains a lot of what's going on in Mary Skelter 2 and why it's why it is like it is, and acts as a and probably should be played after Mary Skelter 2 because it also acts as a hook for Mary Skelter 3 and sort of ties up for Mary Skelter 2 plots.
Yeah. Like Mary Skelter 3, is that like the last Maiden or something, or is that like an upcoming actual Mary Skelter 3?
I think it's out on some formats. It's called Mary Skelter Finale, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not in, off the top of my head. I'm not sure what it's out on, but I think it might already be out on Switch.
Like I said, the chronology of this series can get naughty.
Yeah, I've not played Finale myself, so I'm not entirely sure how it fits in with the other two.
I mean, is that something you're looking at?
I mean, on a personal level, I'd kind of like to play it because I played the first two and I quite enjoy them. On a sort of publishing level, we're aware there's quite a bit of interest in it. And obviously we're aware of its existence, but nothing's been sort of agreed or planned as of this moment.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm remembering correctly, this version of Mary Skelter 2 also has the DLC included in it?
That's right. There's an option on the main menu to... by default, it's disabled, but there's an option on the main menu to enable all the DLC, which gives you lots of bonus items, power-ups, and also allows you, should you choose to, it unlocks Mary Skelter 1 before you complete Mary Skelter 2, because by default, Mary Skelter 1 only unlocks after the completion of Mary Skelter 2.
And when you say complete Mary Skelter 2, is that incumbent on the ending? Because without, once again, going into spoilers, there's a few endings to Mary Skelter 2.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't quite remember. I think... yeah, I'm not sure. I honestly can't remember which ending you need to get, or if you need to get the true ending to unlock it.
I suppose with that option in place, it doesn't really matter all that much.
No, I mean, the thing is, if you want... I definitely recommend, if you haven't played I definitely recommend playing Mary Skelter 2 before unlocking, and at least before completing Mary Skelter Nightmares, because the new ending to Mary Skelter Nightmares makes a lot more sense when you've played Mary Skelter 2.
Okay. Let's see. Was there anything you had to censor in this release? As I remember that being a issue with a couple of Idea Factory releases back in the day.
We had to remove the massage purge corruption minigames from Mary Skelter 2 and Mary Skelter. However, there is a patch on the Ghostlight blog, which, if you download it, will restore that content.
Wow. I'm like, yeah, that's let's just say we've talked to other people who've had to do such things was this in regard to like the Steam release, or was this something that was done in like the PlayStation 4 version and had to carry over, or the Nintendo?
No, this
Switch?
Was this is for the Steam and GOG release, but the console version, as far as I'm aware, it's included in the base game, and there's no need to get a patch.
Did they say why?
I'm afraid this is getting into an area I'm not really allowed to talk about. I've been asked. I can say that it was removed due to circumstances beyond our control, and that there's a patch, but I can't really talk about why it had to happen.
I could hazard a few guesses. Like I said, we've talked to other people who've had this kind of problem. I'm like, let's just say that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a terribly unusual situation anymore.
I'm like, no, but it can be. Let's just say it can be a frustrating situation.
Yeah, I mean, we've never done the sort of off-site patch thing before, and it was a bit new to us, and we needed to talk to some people and get some permissions before we did it, which is why the patch sort of came probably a week after launch, and we didn't really talk about it beforehand because we weren't sure we were going to be able to do it, and we didn't want to get anyone's hopes up.
Fair enough. And is it a free patch?
It is, yep. It's just a link on the blog to download a file which you stick in the game folder at game directory, and that's it.
Yeah. Once again, that's something we've encountered with other people. The more unscrupulous charge money for that.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really consider charging money for it. I mean, as we're very, very new to doing this. I think coming from a console background, it is very much we haven't really been in this situation before, because obviously on console you either can or can't release something. There's no, we'll stick up a patch off site to allow you to do that. I'd imagine it wouldn't go down very well, but yeah.
No. It's either you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
And once again, like from the console side of things, Sony has apparently been clamping down on things for one reason or another.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really released a game on a Sony platform for a long time. I think that's not because of any issues we have with Sony. As far as I'm aware, we still get on really well with them, but it's just, we've still got a good relationship with them. It's just we've been porting stuff, and a lot of the stuff we're porting started out on a Sony platform, so there's not really much point porting it to the same platform. It goes to a different platform.
Man, but the PlayStation 4 part of most PlayStation 4 games is the best port.
In fairness, if I'm remembering correctly, Mary Skelter 2 here started life as a Vita game.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think Vita. About ours is based on the. I'm pretty sure ours is based on the Switch version, but I think it was a Vita game originally.
Yeah, I think it went Vita, PlayStation 4, Switch, then PC. I could be wrong about that.
I think that looks correct to me. Partly from memory and partly from the Wikipedia page.
Yep. Anyway, apologies if you aren't seeing the game on screen. I don't know if Petty's having a problem with the display or not, but nothing can be done about that right now. Anyway, and in terms of the battle systems, has anything, has anything been tweaked between the games? Has anything been added in terms of the layering of combat?
Right. I think the balance obviously has been tweaked, and there's a few things. There's more use of chants, which are turn delayed. So you start a chant. The more powerful spells have generally become chants. So you start a chant on one turn, and then on the next turn it activates. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember because it's been a little while since I played the first game. What else? Yeah, I mean, that's the main one. I think to be honest, it's more, I think apart from that, it's more the skill list that's been tweaked.
Right.
And the way criticals work has changed as well. You get prior notification of a critical now. before you choose to attack, so that can change. Like, quite often when I was playing it, I'd see that the next thing was a critical, so it would be a case of, well, maybe this healing can wait one more turn, maybe? And you sort of can choose to take that chance of getting the critical and doing a bit more damage and hoping that they target a different character. So that's can sort of lure you into mistakes, shall we say.
Right.
Or sometimes it can work quite well, but more often than not, it lured me into mistakes, at least when I was playing it.
That's understandable. And in this, outside of having to do, let's say, adjustments to those mini games, was there anything that had to be added or changed for the PC release here versus the, say, Nintendo Switch version?
I mean, apart from obviously the sort of graphics options, full screen with different resolutions and control customization, the different control options, it's a similar we've not really made changes beyond the sort of beyond what you would for the control system, what people would expect for the control system, the different graphical options and such.
That sounds expected.
Yeah.
And what are the graphical options? How far can you push this game in terms of fidelity?
We've got a range of resolutions depending on, obviously, your monitor. It offers full screen, windowed, and borderless windowed.
I'm asking more like, can you push this up to 1080 or rather 4K resolution? And does it have a 120 hertz refresh rate?
I'm afraid not. Is the
I wasn't expecting that.
No. It's more focused on making sure it works on a variety of different monitors. And I actually got from work an ultra wide monitor because it was having issues on there. So we needed to get one to check it and make sure it worked okay on. And it was given to me, so I ended up with a brand new shiny monitor out of it. But yeah, so we sort of made sure it should work on, everything, anything people are likely to have. But it's not really a game that's going to really push top end, people's systems.
No, and one should not expect that because, once again, this is a game that started off on the Vita, which, okay, that was a handheld powerhouse for its time, but it was still a handheld. And once again, this game is on the, let's say, more frugal end of the graphical fidelity settings because, it's not like, say, Uncharted Golden Abyss. It's a dungeon crawler. That's the kind of game that you could do on 80s computers conceptually. No.
Yeah, I mean, graphically, it's going for something more stylized than the sort of ultra realistic Uncharted style thing. It's more focusing on the art style and on a more stylized art style, which doesn't tend to be so looks good without being so resource intensive.
Yeah, like this is very stylized. It might remind people of, say, like Atlas dungeon crawlers on, say, the DS, specifically, Etrian Odyssey.
Yeah,
I mean, it's quite a bit different than Etrian Odyssey, but then again, Etrian Odyssey was very different from every other dungeon crawler, just because of that map.
Yeah. I think it uses the sort of stylized nature very well to help build up the pretty creepy atmosphere it has in places. I'm particularly thinking of Summer Nightmares, and also places like regions like the Dorm, where it just looks sort of slightly wrong and creepy, but deliberately so.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose another feature about the dungeons themselves that we haven't really touched upon are the gimmicks.
Yeah.
And for those who might not be familiar, gimmicks just basically translates into traps.
Yeah, traps, locks, various puzzles to open doors. Some of them are sort of the standard, you step on this bit and something bad will happen to you, or you step on this thing you step on this part without being prepared and something bad will happen to you, or you need to turn off a button to make part of it safe, or spikes appear periodically. But there's also things like the train that goes round several levels, and you need to time when you move out onto the train tracks to sort of get round it. So some of it is the sort of very typical turn-based, some of it's a bit more real-time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's also lots of puzzles, whether it's the sort of trying to guide a light using mirrors and various reflections to another point, or working out what flavour of ice cream the doors want.
He's not joking about that either.
No, the doors are very demanding. Well, the doors on certain levels are very demanding about what ice creams they want.
Don't want to get them Rocky Road when they wanted daiquiri ice.
Yeah, I tried saying they were a bit fussy, but no, they're very particular. They want that flavour and that flavour. Well, actually, no, they want those two flavours in the correct order.
Anyway, any sort of major bugs to work out on this version?
It's looking relatively solid at the moment. We've had quite a few patches now. Well, about 5 patches, and I think at this point we're not getting that many bug reports anymore. Obviously, if that changes and something does come up, we will work to patch it. But at the moment, it's, as far as I'm concerned, and I can see, it's looking pretty solid on the bug front at the moment. Touch wood.
Indeed. I do remember encountering a fairly major bug when we were covering the review of this. And I think I mentioned that. Sometimes the game would crash or the save would corrupt.
Yeah, we've not had any issues of save corruption for several patches now. So, as hopefully we've managed to resolve that. The crashes. I mean, it's a PC game, and there are a vast range of setups, and it's possible that someone might have a setup that has problems. But when we're seeing, from my perspective, and I am the one who deals with the support requests. I think we're getting a pretty low ratio of crash reports in through the support box. Particularly since the most recent patches, but it seems to be pretty stable for a PC release.
Right. And all that aside, the game's been out for what, a month or a month?
It came out on January the 13th, so about a month and a half.
Yeah. And how's the game been faring on Steam and GOG?
I mean, obviously, for the first week, because we couldn't say anything about the patch that restored the content, there was a fair bit of upset about that. And I think that it certainly had an impact on the reviews, on the Steam user reviews. but they've, since the patch has come out, it's now moved to overall positive, and the most recent reviews are very positive, which is nice to see. Where it was, I think, mixed before that. So people seem to be enjoying it. I don't really see much from a sales perspective. So, I mean, no one's complained to me about the sales, but I've not actually seen anything.
So, I guess they're doing well enough.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, for me, I'm more focused on the sort of user reviews and what I'm hearing from people, because as a community manager, that's kind of the area I get involved in. And it has been very nice to see, particularly since, one, we've done some patches to fix some issues, but also, two, we've released the restoration patch, that the reception has improved quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And people do seem quite a lot happier with it. So that's really nice to see.
And what else? What other reactions have people been having to the PC release?
So, I think in general, people are really quite enjoying it. There's been a lot of people who were waiting for this for quite some time, obviously, because, well, it's been a long time since we released the first, and Mary Skelter 2 did come out quite a while ago on sort of beta and Switch and PS4, so there's a lot of people who've been waiting quite a while for it, so it's really nice to sort of be able to, because it's certainly been a game that a lot of people have been requesting and asking me, are you going to do it? And I've kind of known it was happening for a while, as I said. So it's, I've sort of had to sort of sit there and go, I can't say anything. Thanks for getting in touch and letting us know what you want. But at the moment, I don't have any news to share with you. Where internally I'm like, yeah, we've got it, and I'm hoping we can get it soon, but I can't tell you. So it's just really nice to sort of get it into people's hands, and I think a lot of people have been waiting a long time for it.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. In terms of computer releases here, is the game Windows only, or is it also available on the Mac and or Linux platforms?
It's Windows only, I'm afraid.
And that gets into the actual question is, are you looking to bring Mary Skelter to those computer platforms?
If there's sufficient demand, it's something we might look into, but at the moment there aren't any plans.
Okay, fair enough. And in terms of, let's say, other releases, have you talked to the Epic Games Store about bringing any of your games to that platform?
I've not heard anything about it, but if we're being honest, I probably wouldn't hear about it if there were early discussions. Things tend to get to me a bit later on because my focus is both on testing stuff and dealing with games that are already out, rather than sort of things that are sort of away from that. But we are aware of, we're aware of the Epic Store, but don't have any news on that.
Fair enough. And let's see here, are there any other patches planned for Mary Skelter 2?
Not at the moment, but in very much, if more issues do come to light that require fixing, then we will fix them. But at the moment, there aren't any plans for one.
Okay. And let me see. I'll see if my colleagues here have any more Mary Skelter 2 questions for you before moving on to a couple of other things that I want to talk about before we close out today.
I think I'm good. Sorry
All right.
about that.
So you're both good?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. One thing I wanted to ask is, I've noticed that the Way of the Samurai titles have been delisted. Any news on to why that was or is?
It was a licensing issue. I believe they're now back on there, but we don't. They're not being handled by us anymore. They're now Spike Chunsoft
We're almost done here.
releases. So yeah, there was it's a licensing situation, and we're no longer the publisher on Steam. I mean, I'll miss them because I really enjoyed working on them. I thought they were a lot of fun. But yeah, we're not the publisher anymore.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Are you looking to bring any more of your, let's say, original creations to the Switch, like Flame Over?
Actually, yeah, funnily enough, actually, we have started working on some more ports of Laughing Jackal games to Steam and Switch. I can't say which ones yet, but there are at least 2 at the moment that are in the process of being worked on. But as with a lot of the projects we do for ourselves, it is dependent on what we've got going on with other publishers, because the games we're sort of contracted to do for other publishers will generally take will take priority.
Okay.
So I can't give you any idea on timeline, but we do have 2 we're working on at the moment.
All right, fair enough. I think that'll about do it for me. And we do have to wrap up here. I've got to take care of something. So we'll call it here. Ross, it was good having you on the broadcast. And, hopefully we'll have you back on the program, sooner than 3 years from now.
Hopefully. Thank you for having me on again. It's been a real pleasure, and it's good to be back. It was good to be back.
All right. So, yeah, that'll about do it. And be sure to tune in for the Sunday reviews. Until then, I will wish you good gaming.